This is very important work. The legislation under consideration today will impact thousands of Irish families who host on Airbnb and the communities in every corner of Ireland that benefit from the guests they welcome. In my short opening statement, I thought it might be useful to outline the two issues that I see as requiring the committee's focus. The first is European considerations in setting up a national online registration system for short-term lettings, and the second is the concerns expressed around the impact on hosts of registration combined with new planning rules. Just to the European considerations, I think it's important for us to state very first off that Airbnb supports the need for all hosts to register. This means that Airbnb will work cooperatively with Fáilte Ireland in the provision of appropriate information and the removal of non-compliant listings from our platform. But the relevant provisions of that legislation to achieve those aims will need to comply with European law so that Ireland is compliant with its obligations as a member state. In our submission, which is quite detailed, we offer solutions to those provisions of the general scheme that would appear not to comply with European law. The committee should also be aware of impending European regulation in this space, namely the EU proposal on short-term rentals. Airbnb has been advocating for an EU solution for several years to provide legal clarity to platforms when it comes to sharing of personal host data with local and national authorities. Given that there is now a proposal on the table in Brussels and that Ireland is directly involved in the legislative discussions at EU level, we would recommend that the government focuses on building an EU-level framework that can then help inform national policy decisions on short-term rental data sharing. Of course, this EU proposal does not and will not alter the ability of the Oireachtas to legislate on short-term rentals. However, when the Oireachtas does act, it should clearly act in a way which aligns and where possible anticipates rather than conflicts with EU legislation and ongoing policy discussions. The second issue around planning requirements, or specifically, to call it what it is, permission to do short-term letting, is clearly quite complex. Recent headlines and commentary have created a lot of fear and anxiety amongst our host community and indeed the broader tourism sector. And I know that members of the committee have been contacted by people, as I have, about their concerns. In that light, I thought it might be useful just to give some sense of the kind of people who host on our platform. The majority of hosts on Airbnb in Ireland are everyday families who rely on Airbnb for additional income. On average, these hosts share their primary home for just 3 nights a month, and among those who share an entire home, nearly 9 in every 10 share only one listing. A quarter of Irish hosts are over 60 years of age and work in either education, healthcare or hospitality. The typical Irish host earns just over €5,600 a year, which is the equivalent to 2 months' additional pay for the median Irish household. More than half of hosts in Ireland say they afford to meet the rising cost of living, and over a third say the additional income helps them make ends meet. Indeed, in my letter to the committee, I have offered to facilitate direct engagement by the committee with members of our host community. And I think this will be a really useful endeavour in understanding firsthand the real people who will be impacted by regulations and reform in this area. But hosting doesn't just benefit individual hosts. It has a significant positive economic benefit across Ireland. Upcoming independent research from Oxford Economics, commissioned by Airbnb, data from which we shared with the committee, highlights some home sharing as a pillar of the tourism economy. The research has found that Airbnb activities supported over 4,800 jobs in Ireland in 2022, with Airbnb-linked spending representing 10.5% of all international tourism-related spending. And it's not just in Dublin. Hosts on Airbnb have dispersed economic value to all regions, making a significant economic contribution in every county in Ireland. In Kerry, for example, Airbnb-linked tourism spending in 2022 amounted to €65 million, supporting 456 jobs. In my home county of Galway, the figures are €63 million, supporting 830 jobs. And in Cork, the figures are €52 million, supporting 411 jobs. It is clear that in communities across the country, small businesses from pet farms to pubs, cafes to craft shops, all benefit from the presence of hosts and guests. As Housing for All says, the purpose of registration is to ensure the availability of long-term residential accommodation balanced with the needs of the tourism sector as appropriate. Airbnb's view is that clear and simple regulation can allow home sharing to work for everyone, but regulation that makes it difficult or expensive to host will risk preventing families and communities from accessing income they cannot afford to lose. It seems to me that the heart of this debate centres on the proposed new planning rules, which I understand are yet to be finalised. I would respectfully suggest to the committee that the legislation should be considered in tandem with these rules, so that the committee is aware not just of how the technical aspects of registration will work, but also the impact it will have on hosts and communities across the country for whom short-term letting matters so much. Ireland is a tourism island, a tourism economy. We have been for generations. I know members will want to protect that as much as possible, as all stakeholders do.